Aloha. So it's September and we just did that series on vinegar, and then I followed that with the Chinese chicken salad. And tomorrow's kind of a special day for me, and I probably will be too busy to make a cake. So I decided to make it today, and then I thought I should make the Wacky Cake so you guys can see it in action. So the whole reason it's called Wacky Cake is because it has no dairy, so no butter, no milk, and no eggs. So it's vegan. It was developed in wartime, depression time, when you couldn't get those products, and so you had to make do. And the key elements are baking soda and vinegar to create that leavening effect, so that it creates the rise and the stiffness without losing the moistness. So that's the idea with it, and it's really simple. It takes about a half an hour to cook. The original recipe has everything done in your pan. I'm not that girl. I like to mix in my bowl and then put it. But because it was all done in the pan, you don't have to pre oil them or butter and flour it. You just leave it as is. So, dry ingredients. This is my bowl of dry ingredients. Yep, it's going to be a chocolate cake. There is cocoa in there. So I've got 1.5 cups of flour, a cup of sugar, 4 tablespoons of cocoa. I went with the Dutch process. It is what it is. And a teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of baking soda. That's all in there, stirred up. I just stirred it up. Just to get all the flavorings incorporated. I made sure, it doesn't say to do that in the recipe, but I made sure I sifted my cocoa just to get rid of all the lumps, and the baking soda, those things, just to get it through there. And now that I'm doing this, I see lumps of sugar. Goodness gracious, Hau'oli. In any case, dry ingredients. So in the original recipe, you put the dry ingredients in the pan, and then you make little divots, 3 divots for the primary wet ingredients. So I'm just making 3 little holes in my dry ingredients. The first thing is a tablespoon of vinegar. It's that white vinegar, the one that I ran out of the other week, I replaced. So a tablespoon of white vinegar is going to go into one of the pukas, one of the little divots in my dry ingredients. Okay. Oh, it's turning red. One of the other wet ingredients is a teaspoon. So it's a teaspoon of vanilla. Of course, if you like vanilla, you can amp it up. So that goes in the other puka. And then in the third puka, which is not big enough, I can tell already, is 6 tablespoons of vegetable oil. And you could replace that with applesauce. Sorry, I was making sure it would go in. Applesauce, if you're concerned about that. I'm not. This is the original recipe that I'm somewhat doing. And then you cover it all with 1 cup of water. So that was a tablespoon of vinegar, a teaspoon of vanilla, 6 tablespoons of oil, and a cup of water. Mix it all into your dry ingredients, which was 1.5 cups of AP flour, all-purpose flour, a cup of sugar, 4 tablespoons of cocoa, a teaspoon of salt, and a teaspoon of baking soda. Get that all incorporated. The reason I like glass bowls is that you can see all that mix that's not mixed in at the bottom, so that when you scoop it out, you don't go, oh shoot, look at all that dry stuff on the bottom. So mixed it all up. You don't want to over mix, but you do want to make sure you get all that dry stuff incorporated, as much lump out as possible. Then put it in your pan. It's an 8x8 recipe, by the way, so if you want to do a layered cake, you're gonna have to double it. I'm just putting it in my glass squared pan. Interesting enough, this recipe says to not do it in a metal pan, to do it in glass, probably because it's not prepping the pan first. So if any of you want to attempt it in your metal pan, go for it. Let me know your success. I recommend spray it first or butter and flour it first, just so that you don't get, a cake pan. So anyway, I'm taking it, I'm gonna put it in my square single layer 8x8 pan, and I'm gonna put it in my 350 oven for 25 to 30 minutes, and then pull it out. I'm gonna then let it cool, and I'm gonna top it with some trippy trippy icing that I had read about before and had intended to try, but never did. And I thought, what the heck? This is an occasion for it. So I'm going to try it with you. And we're going to see if it really works. It better, because that's my only plan. Stick with me. I'll show you what the cake looks like when it comes out of the oven and the freaky frosting. All right. So that secret magic frosting I was talking about, if you guys don't follow Emmy Made, you should. I love that chick. She just like breaks it down and tries everything. And so she talked about this one frosting the other day, and I thought, oh, I love coffee ice cream. I love coffee. I should just say that out front. I love coffee. And this one just seems so simple and few ingredients, and it seemed foolproof. Fool will prove it. So it's just 3 ingredients. The key ingredient is instant coffee crystals. I only bought this for this recipe. You would not find instant coffee in my house otherwise, but 1/3 cup of instant coffee crystals. And she specifically had this brand, so I bought this brand. And I'm following my girl Emmy. So 1/3 cup of that in here, and get all those crystals out. Okay, right on. Then the second ingredient is 1 cup of sugar. And she said it turned out pretty sweet, but if you know John, his favorite cake is frosting. So not gonna be a problem. And this is a 1/3 cup measuring. So I'm just taking 3 scoops of that, shallow scoops. So it's somewhat less. And then I'm gonna hook that up to my mixer, because this one's gonna take a little bit of time to blend. And in fact, it's the whipping attachment instead of the paddle or the dough hook. So put that on. And the third magical ingredient is 160 milliliters of ice cold water. So this is water with ice. And here's my bread measuring cup for liquid ingredients, and it actually has 160 on it. So I'm just gonna add ice cold water to 160 and then pour that in and let it rip. So it's gonna get a little noisy. I apologize for the noise. But apparently this is going to give me nice, fluffy, stable frosting. So there we go. There's that 160 milliliters of ice cold water going up, going on. Excuse the noise. It's mixing. Smells great. It's coffee. Okay, so I'm gonna let this go for a few minutes. She did say it takes 1.5 to 2 minutes before you see anything happening, and then it'll just thicken like a meringue, except eggless. So we'll see. Check back with me. Go, go, go. All right, here's that magic coffee frosting that Emmy Made showed. If you don't follow her on YouTube, you should. She's awesome. It's almost done. So instant coffee, 1/3 cup, 1 cup of sugar, and a cup of 160 milliliters of ice cold water went in this. And if you know coffee, when you, especially those crystals, without any creamer, it's dark black. So I've let this whip with my whip attachment for 2-3 minutes now. And I'm gonna show you the color and the consistency. Look at that. Look at that. Isn't that luscious? She did not lie. That is gorgeous. It is a little loose. Doesn't hold like hers, so maybe I need to go a few more minutes. But just look at that curl. Look at that curl still up there. I don't know if you can see it. There. Look at that. It held for quite a while now, but it hasn't released. Mind you, I'm a 98-degree person, 97-degree person. Tastes like coffee. She's right, it is sweet. So when my wacky cake is done, I'm gonna let it cool. Well, actually, I might put this on and let it spin a little more. Anyhow, when the wacky cake is done, I'm gonna let it fully cool. Spread this luscious, man, that is soft. It's amazing. It tastes like coffee, of course, but it's creamy and there's no cream in it. and it's soft and luscious in your mouth. It's, I want to say voluptuous. It doesn't leave like a greasy grime like Cool Whip does. It doesn't taste eggy at all like a meringue, but it just makes a nice smooth feeling in your mouth. It's awesome. So I'm gonna put this on my cooled wacky chocolate cake and maybe shave some chocolate on top. Lord knows I've got chocolate here. And there you go. That's a happy birthday cake indeed. Cool. So we'll see what the cake looks like when it's done. I got another minute on that, then we'll cool it and top it, and da-da. Happy, happy. Cool. Here's the wacky cake straight out of the oven. It's got to cool. You can see my toothpick pricks from testing it for doneness. It is done. I'm gonna let it cool. Then I'm gonna top it with this luscious frosting made of coffee granules, crystals, and sugar and water. Stay tuned for the goody good. So here's the finished cake, cooled and frosted. Look at that frosting, is about as thick as the cake, but it's actually super light. In fact, I whipped it a little longer to get it a little stiffer, and then it sat for so long it started to loosen again, but it still tastes really yummy and creamy. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut us a couple of slices. As you can see, even though the cake has cooled, the frosting isn't keeping its line. See how the line kind of joins back even though it's cut? That's okay, it's still gonna taste yummy. Awesome. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab this corner piece, pull it up. Hopefully it'll all come up. There's so much frosting on there, it's hard to even see the cake. There it is. Ta-da! So I'll get a piece out for John, and then we'll enjoy our cake. But there you have it. There's your wacky cake. Again, white wine vinegar and our crazy coffee frosting. Enjoy. Love you all.